Hello, all of you vaingloriously wonderful people. With summer winding down, that can only signal one thing in Astroneer. It's time for the EXO FARM, or Fuel Acquisition, Renewal, and Maintenance Limited Time Event. You are tasked with collecting resources to produce various biofuels via a Cauldrangea, and then shipping them off via an EXO Request Platform in exchange for event points. Those event points unlock some cool cosmetics along with some useful items. So let's take a look at what is involved. To get started, head to a mission log on a landing pad and read through the details of the EXO FARM event mission, paying special attention to the planets mentioned toward the end of the entry. Once you have read it, hit the big green button to obtain your reward of a Resopound, a leak, a tapper, and 500 research bytes. If you completed the farm event last year, you might already have everything on hand you need to complete the event this year, since it functions the same as it did last year. But if you don't, or if this is your first time taking part in this event, then let's talk about what you need to do next. Before you can start creating anything, you will need a Cauldrangea to produce biofuels. There are 3 variants available, and each variant produces biofuel at a different rate. You can find the leisurely Cauldrangea on Silva, and as its name implies, it's the slowest. The brisk Cauldrangea can be found on Cauldrangea, and it's a bit quicker at producing biofuel. The quickest, the swift Cauldrangea, can be found on Atrox. To help you locate Cauldrangea, your compass has been updated to display an orange nav point representing the nearest Cauldrangea. If you do not see such a nav point on your compass, then try making your way toward the bright aurora in the sky, as Cauldrangea are most likely to appear near that area of each of the planets I mentioned a moment ago. If you can't see the auroras, you can jump into a shuttle and blast off into orbit around the planet. Once you spot the aurora, pick a nearby landing spot and head back down to the surface of the planet. Your compass should now display a nearby Cauldrangea. Each Cauldrangea is surrounded by a collection of hostile plants native to each planet, along with some pretty vicious slash vines, so reaching the Cauldrangea can be a risky endeavor. If you're on PC using mouse and keyboard, you can extend your terrain tool and reach farther than usual, which will probably let you pick up the Cauldrangea without getting too close to those hostile plants. If you're playing with a controller, that long reach isn't possible, so you'll need to carefully dig up the hostile plants surrounding the Cauldrangea. If you have a vehicle with a drill attached, that can help you remove the plants in relative safety. Once you have your Cauldrangea, you can use a packager to box it up for easy transport. So, which one do you pick? Personally, I go to Atrox and get the Swift Cauldrangea since it produces biofuels the quickest. Plus, Atrox has an abundant supply of seasonal flora that you will need to complete this event. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Each Cauldrangea sits atop Cauldrangea Roots, which is essentially a reskinned large platform A. If you want one, you will most likely have to dig them up, as most of them are embedded in the surrounding terrain. Once you have the Cauldrangea Roots, you can package them up as well. But you don't actually need the Cauldrangea Roots, or any platform for that matter, for the Cauldrangea to function. So the Cauldrangea Roots just add a nice bit of decoration. Now that you have a Cauldrangea, it's time to collect everything else you will need to complete the event. Regardless of which biofuel you're going to produce, you need to locate some Sturdysquash and collect a few of their seeds. Once you plant them and they have regrown, you can harvest each Sturdysquash and they will produce more Sturdysquash seeds along with Sturdysquash samples. Those Sturdysquash samples are required for every biofuel recipe, so it isn't a bad idea to gather a few Sturdysquash seeds to help you get started. The Sturdysquash can be found near the mountains of Silva and Cauldrangea and in the canyons of Atrox. They are most abundant on Atrox, however. To me, that makes Atrox the best spot, though also the most dangerous, to collect items for the farm event. There are 2 other plants that appear during the farm event, and I would encourage you to collect at least one of each. They are the Amaize plant, which appear in the caves of Silva and will be displayed on your compass as a bright yellow Resopound nav point. The second, the Tuberyl, I think I'm saying that right, appears in the valleys of Asanya. It appears on your compass with a bright green leak nav point. I had difficulty locating the Tuberyl plant both this year and last year, so I think they are far more rare than the Amaize plant. It is worth the time spent finding them, however, as they will allow you to create the biofuel that rewards the most event points. You can interact with both the Amaize and Tuberyl plants to harvest them and collect their seeds. You can then replant them anywhere you wish, and attach tappers to them to produce their unique resources. Well, okay, you could have placed tappers on them where you found them, but you should probably harvest them and replant them closer to where you plan on completing the farm event. With a tapper attached, the Amaize plant will produce Resipound, while the Tuberyl plant yields leeks. I'm going to be using the leeks to complete this event, but Resipound is used during other limited time events, so it's not a bad idea to harvest this plant now and have it available for the cheer event that will be active around the winter holidays. There are 2 additional plant seeds that go into different recipes for biofuels. These seeds come from digging up the spiny Attactus on Cauldrangea and elegant Spewflower on the surface of Aatrox. The biofuels produced from these seeds are not worth as many event points as the ones produced from leeks, so I tend to skip these. But if you already have a bunch of them on hand, they can help you get started with the event. So, you should have a Cauldrangea, some Sturdysquash seeds, and maybe even a few seeds from the other plants we have talked about. Let's look at how you put all this together and start getting some event rewards. If you hover your cursor over the Cauldrangea, you can cycle through 5 different recipes for the various biofuels. To create a biofuel, just attach the required resources to the input and the Cauldrangea will get to work. 2 Sturdysquash samples will produce Squashaline, which is worth 15 event points. A Sturdysquash sample and a mutant spiny Attactus seed will produce Attactus, which is worth 28 event points. Noxethane is produced from 1 Sturdysquash sample and 1 mutant elegant Spewflower seed, and is worth 40 event points. Unknown biofuel is worth 50 event points and is created from 1 Sturdysquash sample and 1 Resipound. And finally, Soup is produced from 1 leek and 1 Sturdysquash sample and is worth 70 event points. Those first 4 biofuels are all considered gases, so they can be stored in a medium gas canister, but soup is, well, soup, which is pretty much a liquid, so it can be stored in the medium fluid and soil canister. Those medium canisters can attach to the top of the EXO Request Platform rocket, allowing you to receive a large number of event points per launch. By the way, there is no big green button to push on the Cauldrangea to start producing biofuels, and you do not have to supply any power for it to work. As soon as the Cauldrangea has the required resources for its recipe, it will begin producing biofuel. I guess that means we should probably get the EXO Request Platform ready for the event. If you have not yet done so, interact with the EXO Request Platform to open the control panel, and then push the big green button. If the rocket wasn't already seated on the platform, it will appear after a few seconds, and you can start attaching biofuels to the slots on the rocket. The 8 small Tier 1 slots can all accept a single biofuel, while the medium Tier 2 slot is where you can attach a medium canister. As you send off rockets full of biofuels, you receive event points. Once you have reached 800 event points, you will unlock the Pick Your Poison visor. At 2,400 event points, you unlock the Stem the Tide hat. And at 8,000 event points, you will unlock the Bad Apple palette. I'll show you what all 3 cosmetics look like on multiple different suits in just a moment. As you work your way through the event, there are also 4 different intervals at which you will receive special care packs full of useful items. These are indicated by the small arrows on the progress meter toward the bottom of the display of the EXO Request Platform. If you continue to send off biofuel with the EXO Request Platform after unlocking all of the cosmetics, you will receive additional care packages that can contain useful resources and other items. And if this is your first time taking part in the EXO FARM event, you will unlock the pumpkin shelter with your first shipment of biofuel. And this is what the cosmetics look like on a few different suits. I think they look pretty great. As you ooh and ah over these, I'd like to encourage you to consider using some degree of automation to help you complete the event. You might have noticed that I had over a dozen medium canisters full of soup. That is because I know the event arrives around this time every year, and since I already had everything on hand to create biofuels, I had the soup ready to go. And I created it all with a fairly simple automation setup. Each and every year, I get criticism for my farm automation being too simple or too slow. And that is fair criticism if your goal is to collect a huge number of care packages well beyond unlocking the cosmetics. But I already have a ton of that stuff on hand, so I'm just here for those cosmetics. As such, my little setup works just fine and can produce 2 full medium canisters full of soup in about 15 minutes. Here's how I set it up. At one end, I have a small hole dug with a couple of Sturdysquash planted. That hole also has 2 proximity repeaters that are within each other's green activation area, and I ensure that the Sturdysquash are within the activation circles as well. Just outside the circle are 2 auto arms, filtered to Sturdysquash samples, and those are aimed toward 2 Cauldrangeias. Off to the side of the Cauldrangeias, I have a couple of leek plants with tappers collecting leeks. And in between those plants and the Cauldrangeias are more auto arms, filtered for leeks and lined up to place those leeks on the Cauldrangeias. And behind the Cauldrangeias are 2 more auto arms, this time filtered to soup, ready to grab the soup from the Cauldrangea and drop it into the medium fluid and soil canisters. Once I'm ready to fire it up, I turn on all of the auto arms, then interact with one of the proximity repeaters. That will trigger the other repeater, and now they are constantly triggering each other. But they are also harvesting the Sturdysquash when they're full grown and automatically replanting the seeds so new Sturdysquash can grow. When I'm finished with the event, all I have to do is pick up one of the repeaters to break the activation loop and then turn off my auto arms so they aren't consuming power. By the way, you do want to dig that hole at the end, otherwise the Sturdysquash samples and seeds will scatter often beyond the reach of the auto arms. Like I said, it's a very simple setup, but it works great for my purposes. If you have tips that can help other players create more advanced or efficient farm automation, be sure to leave a comment telling us how it works. And that's the farm event for 2025. Aside from new cosmetics, it's pretty much a repeat of last year's farm event. And I'm okay with that. I do hope we see a refresh next year, but for this year, it meant I was able to complete the event really quick and then get to work creating this video. As events go, the farm event is one of the easier ones to complete in my opinion, and also one of the more enjoyable because of the unique Cauldrangeias. But I'd love to know what you think about the EXO limited time event and the cosmetics we can unlock this year. Head down to the comments and tell us all about it. Or just leave an emoji that sums up your thoughts. And while you're down there, please be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful. And you might even want to get subscribed. I feature a lot of Astroneer content on my channel, including news for limited time events and game updates, along with information and guides for upcoming updates. I'm even currently working on a special video that shows off some Starseeker gameplay from PAX. Plus, my channel is home to Astroneer Academy, which is the most comprehensive, most entertaining, and most well-produced series of guides for Astroneer that you will find anywhere. I have all of that on my channel, plus content from a variety of other games. Get subscribed so you don't miss any of it. And until next time, I'm Brandon, reminding you to stay vainglorious.